Hi everybody. I wanted to take this opportunity to make a virtual classroom tour. Because of COVID, parents really aren't allowed in the buildings. None of you have seen our classroom. Like usually during parent-teacher conferences, or just, parents will come in and at least see the classroom. Or maybe they're have to come and drop something off to me. At some point they see the classroom and see where their child's spending it, a couple days of the week. So I wanted to provide this for you. I wanted you to see the classroom and what your children, what type of environment they're hanging out in. And I also wanted to show you the work that they've been doing, right? So education's changed a lot since I was a kid. But as a teacher, I have to have evidence that demonstrates that children have learned a certain learning standard, right? And I need to hold on to it for evidence in case there's any disputes. I need that readily available. So I hold on to a lot of their work and then I release it at the end of the year in a portfolio after I have all their grades documented. So I don't send a lot of work home. So I wanted to explain to you what your children have been learning all year so far. And they've learned a lot. We've been doing a lot. And most of the work we've done are on my walls. I have walls for every subject, and I put the things, examples of the things we've been doing up there. Their work, I put it up on the wall. So I'll show that to you and I'll talk about it, as well as giving you just a tour of what the classroom looks like. All right. And if your child is in Miss Sand's class, we co-teach a lot of the same units. So I'd say 90 to 95% of the things we're teaching are the same exact things. So what kids are learning in here, they're learning in Miss Sand's rooms. This is our player progress corner. I started the year off with like a video game theme, and in a lot of the online video games you have like leaderboards and player stats and player progress boards where you see like the top players in the world, you see their rank and their scores, but you could also search your scores individually to see where you are on the online gaming community. So I don't know, I just thought I made a player progress board, and this right here these are layers of the earth models, right? And so I just hung them up just to, show them off to the kids. And people are coming in the room, administrators and other teachers, and just to show them what we've been doing. But also it serves as a reminder for the kids of what they've been learning. And here we have, this is some reading work. Miss Sands comes into my classroom and teaches reading to my kids. So this is some of her reading work, her word work, spelling, spelling games, and how to working on root words and suffixes and prefixes. So those are some of the work she does, and that is the player progress corner. This is our small group corner. I have an oval desk here for math. Actually, basically any subject really. I take small groups back here and work. And when Miss Sands comes in to teach reading, she'll take 3 or 4 kids back here at a time. I have pencils, paper, graph paper. I have math manipulatives. Mrs. Sands has all her reading work here. I always keep extra pencils because for some reason it takes children 14 minutes to get a new pencil. So I always like to have one right. If they break their lead, it's like right here, and nobody gets distracted. And then here I have buckets where students pass in their homework and their classwork. On this wall right here, this is our word wall. And Mrs. Sands teaches spelling. I don't do a tremendous amount of work with these, but the idea is I'm working on these, first half of the year I work on these 4 suffixes: ABLE, IBLE, TION, and NESS, right? And so there's a little bit of work with understanding roots and suffixes and how those suffixes affect the meaning of the root word. And I also do the silent N, which is, it's silent K, which is challenging for students in Lake Region. So I'm just trying to expose them to that. And then for the first half of the year, I put like 5 new words on a week. And for the first half of the year, and then in the second half of the year I'll actually put prefixes on them. So then we'll have the same words, but we'll learn how prefixes change an entire meaning of a word, and how you can decode, and with like 5 different prefixes you can decode thousands of words and understand the meaning of thousands of words. But again, I don't spend a tremendous amount of time in this. We do this during intervention and enrichment for like 10-15 minutes a day. So that is our small group corner. This is our math corner. They're game-winning strategies. Again, I went with the video game theme. But anyways, it's just a couple different strategies to help students sort out information and word problems and try to figure out what these problems are asking them, and how to categorize information and then develop some type of plan to solve the problem. And so we have like drawing a picture, making a bar diagram, making a table or graph, or writing an equation. And I haven't focused too much on word problems in math, and we haven't as a district because of COVID. There's a lot of information they didn't learn last year. We sort of had to pre-teach it. And now that they have that information, like subtracting larger numbers, multiplying larger numbers, we're going to incorporate that and expect them to start solving word problems. So this is going to help this trimester. This is our science and social studies wall. We just got done with science from last trimester. The essential understanding, or the essential question that we tackled, is understanding how the Earth is constantly changing. Right, and so we spent time talking about the 4 major layers. Well, we looked at all 4 of them, but we spent a lot of time with the mantle and the crust, learning about how these 2 layers interact with, or constantly interacting with each other, and how they're sort of recycling each other on a constant basis. But we talked about the different tectonic plates, and how there's 2 different kinds of crusts, oceanic crust and continental crust, and how those interact with each other and how those change landscapes. Again, we talked about the movement. We looked at the Pangea theory, where at one point all the continents were one supercontinent and have been drifting apart because of the fact that the crust is floating on the mantle. And then we talked about different types of movement that the plates have. We have convergent boundaries, where plates come together, transform boundaries. That is where you get a lot of earthquakes because they're rubbing up against each other. And then we have divergent boundaries, where we get a lot of volcanoes because the plates are pulling apart from each other, letting molten come up from the mantle. We talked about the Ring of Fire and why there are so many. We mapped out some volcanoes. We did an activity. We learned about volcanoes, but we mapped out all these volcanoes on the Pacific Plate, and trying to understand why there are so many volcanoes there. The first half of the trimester, in the beginning of the year, we were working on social studies. The essential question was understanding how climate and geography affected the early humans in North America. Right? And so we learned about, we memorized continents, we memorized the oceans. We looked at different regions, climate regions of climate regions of the United States. Major landforms in North America, like the Appalachians, the Rocky Mountains, the Great Basin, and the Great Plains. Just these major landforms. And we talked a little bit about how these landforms came to be. Like, you're getting the mountains when the 2 different plates are colliding together. We talked about how erosion has sort of smoothed out the Appalachian Mountains, and how the Appalachian Mountains are older than the Rocky Mountains, and that's why you have more jagged, higher peaks in the Rocky Mountain than you do the Appalachians. But we talked a lot about how weather and climate affects the land, and what food can grow, and the resources available, and how that's going to affect people in different regions. We spent a lot of time talking about that. We talked about the migration, how it's widely theorized that North American people originally originated in Asia and migrated through the Bering Strait. We talked a lot about different resources, natural resources versus non-renewable, renewable and non-renewable resources. But the whole point was how the climate and the geography affected life for people in different regions. So we talked a lot about how in the Great Plains it's easier to farm because you have more cooperative weather and you also have a lot of farmland, whereas in the Rockies you have a lot of rocks, right? So how these landscapes and climate affected people. We spent a lot of time talking about that. All right, I'm just gonna have to go blog style on this because this is tucked away in a corner. But we have we did a lot of work on narratives, right? And we focused on writing an introductory paragraph, 3 paragraphs for the body, and then a conclusion paragraph. And we spent a lot of time talking about the intro. Like, kids did wonderful in developing their body, right? Like, they could add details very well. But it was really expanding the introduction, introducing what the narrative's going to be about, the story about a special time in their life, right? And that they want to include a thesis statement, meaning an idea of what this essay is going to be about. And then they want to try and hook the reader. And they have different strategies like asking a question, describing the setting, using dialogue, or using sound to sort of capture the reader and hopefully have the reader be interested in the work and want to read more. And then we went into the details: who, what, where, when, how, why, events of the story. And we focused a lot on conclusions too. I think that this is the hardest thing for them, but our kids did great, right? My kids did great. And in the conclusion, you basically rephrase what you open the story with. What is this story about? Why am I writing about this story? Like, and then there are different strategies that we can use to sort of capture the reader again and help the reader remember what they were reading about, such as they talk about lessons they learned from the story, their feelings, maybe what they hope to happen from this story, from writing the story or telling the story, or maybe giving an update. And writing, I feel, is really where, writing's another subject where I feel like I was crunched from COVID, but I was really impressed with the writing that they ended up doing by the end of the unit. And it's something we're going to continue on with throughout the year. I'm not going to stop writing narratives. Traditionally, we stop writing narratives as we go into the next trimester, but I'm going to try to give them opportunities to write. But all in all, I was really impressed with how well they did despite the crunch of time. So I was really happy with their work. And this essentially is our new whiteboard. Like, this is what boards have become now in school. And what I will do is, when the kids come in from recess, I'll hook up my PlayStation and I'll sit on my desk and doze off and let them play Fortnite until the bell rings. I'm just kidding. I don't doze off while they play Fortnite. But I will. It's like a 90-inch TV, but it's also a computer, and it also functions as a board, and it's really cool. I have a whiteboard where I can draw, I can change colors pretty quickly too, right? And I can do all my drawings, all my artwork, and then it switches to I can put whatever I have on my computer, displayed on my computer, I can put up here. So if there's something I want to show them, and I also have right here, I have a Ladybug. It's basically a digital camera that if there's something I want to put under the camera and display, I can run it through there and it'll pop up on here. So I can magnify everything. And I think it's really, most of the time when I'm on here, kids are looking at it, right? So it's a great medium for information. Their eyes are really, anything I play on here, anything I do on here, a lot of the times their eyes are up on here. So I think it's a good contribution to the classroom, and I think most of the classrooms in this school have this TV. So I think it's really cool. I think it's really good. And here's the last corner. I have whiteboard and my questions and job board, right? And so the whiteboard, I don't really use that much. Sometimes I will write on it, like if I have multiple things for them to do during a class, during a lesson, there'll be lists up here. And I mean, occasionally I make notes on here, but one of the jobs is for the board manager. So they'll come up, they love erasing what I've written up there, and then they write the date, and they're much better about it than I am. And here I have my job board over here. We have lights, messenger, lunch helper, handout helper, pencils, and the board manager. I try to change those every week, so I'm not that great about it, but the kids usually remind me that they want, when they're tired of their jobs, they'll let me know, and I'll change their jobs. But here I have big time questions, and these are the questions that I remind them, like, you know, most lessons fit within a unit. And I want to ask them these questions at the beginning to understand the more encompassing concept, like the more, I don't know, the bigger understanding behind what we're learning. Like, for instance, in science, we're learning about plants and animal parts. So they're going to be individually learning about, you know, the parts of a plant, the stems, the leaves, the flower, the fruit, the roots, and what their functions are. But I need them to understand, what I want them to come to understand is how each of those parts are helping the plant survive and enable its reproduction. So I'm always asking these questions, like for the plants, it would be, how do plant parts help plants survive and reproduce? Right, so I'm asking them that at the beginning of the lesson to sort of have them have a deeper sense of understanding of what they're learning. And that's really, that kind of concludes everything. It's been a great year so far. I really appreciate the kids. I'm like so proud of these kids. These kids are really doing wonderful. I mean, I have incidents where, you know, kids are being off task and misbehaving, but overall I'm really impressed with how well they're doing given the circumstances. They produce a lot of work. I'm really impressed. Even though they're only here 2 days a week, there's so fewer distractions because I only have 7 or 8 kids in my classroom at a time that we're able to get through a lot of work. I'm working. I think writing will eventually catch up to itself, and I have to work on squeezing time in for them to organize their belongings, and I'll be a lot more pleased with my performance. All right, so I hope everybody had a great holiday season. And you can always, if you need anything, you can always write me an email, okay? So thank you, and hopefully I'll talk to you some point soon.